Well, hello everyone. Alejandro Tornato here, coming directly from Beaufort, Georgia. And great to be connecting with all of you once again. And tonight, I want to talk to you about this statement. Ask why, not who. Ask why, not who. Everyone fails at something at some point in your life. I know that I have. I'm sure that you have. Now, if you're a doer, you will encounter failure at some point in your path. I have never met anyone who hasn't. Now, therefore, the next time that you experience failure, think about why you failed instead of who was at fault. Try to look at it objectively so that you can do better next time. And the reason I say that is because I don't know if you had the experience of talking to people when perhaps, they've gone through failures in their lives, or they've gone through rough times. What most people tend to do is they tend to look and see what caused this failure, and they try to look at everybody else and everything else. But what I truly believe that what true leaders do is, rather than being quickly to look outside of themselves, they looked at what they have done that perhaps caused that failure to happen to them, or what could they have done differently in order to avoid that failure. And so that's what true leaders do. And what I am going to share with you right now is a list of questions to help you analyze any kind of failure that you may have. And the first question is this: what lessons have I learned? What lessons, or what lesson, perhaps is just only one lesson, but what lesson have I learned as a result of this failure? You see, rather than concentrating on the failure, concentrate on the lessons that you learn, because if you learn those lessons well, is going to help you the next time. So you're going to be a step forward next time. You're going to be failing forward, as John Maxwell says, and he wrote a book about that by the title of Failing Forward. You see, but the only way that you are going to fail forward is if you learn the lessons that happened to you on your last failure. And if you keep, it doesn't matter how many times you fail, but if you keep learning the lessons, you're not going to be failing for exactly the same reasons, because you already learned that. And so you're going to be failing because you're going to keep trying new things, and you will fail, but you will fail because of different reasons. And you keep learning those new lessons. So first important, very important question. Do not concentrate on the failure, but concentrate on what are the lessons that you have learned, or that you are currently learning if you are going through a bad time. Question number 2. Am I grateful for this experience? Basically, am I grateful for this failure? You see, not not many people are not many people are grateful for things. They just don't have that spirit of gratefulness. I mean, they think that everyone ought to give them something, that life ought to give them something. And whether they have very little or very much, I mean, they don't exhibit that spirit of gratefulness. And I think that when you fail, when you're going through failure, think that if you are grateful for that failure, because what in essence, what does failure mean? Failure means that you are doing something and that you have tried something. It doesn't matter whether you succeeded or not, but you tried something. You were doing something. And whether you succeeded or failed, there's always a reason to be grateful. So are you grateful for that experience, whatever that experience was? But if you can learn lessons from that experience, you should exhibit a spirit of gratefulness. Question number 3. How can I turn the failure into success? How can I turn the failure into success? That is what leaders do when they get into that reflective modality, that reflection mode. And they begin to think about it and says, well, what could have I done differently? What could have been another way of doing it? And so by thinking and by adjusting things, then you are in a sense turning the failure into a future success. Turning your current failure into a future success. That's what good leaders do. They do not stay stuck in the current failure. What they do is they begin to think and analyze and reflect so they can turn this failure into a future success. That is the transformation that leaders engage through their leadership journey. Following question is, where do I go from here? You see, I am here going through failure or just failed at something, so I am on failure territory. So where do I go from here? Well, what leaders do and what people who are resilient do is they don't stay down looking and being miserable about the failure. They don't do that. Because if you do that, then you are going backward. It's like what Maslow says. Are you moving forward into growth? Into success? Into turning failure into success? Is that what you're doing? Or you can either do that, moving forward into growth, or you can turn back and go back into what? Into safety. But you cannot do both. You can either go one way or go the other way. You cannot go both ways at the same time. So it's a personal decision that you have to make. So where do I go from here? I suggest that you go forward into growth. And you look at this failure as a stepping stone into your next learning experience and success. Now, another question is, who else has failed in this way before, and how can that person help me? You see, that's a great question. I mean, if you failed, then rather than staying and complaining about that failure, then look and see who else that I may know failed in this way before, and I can meet that person and I can have a conversation with that person to see how that person could help me in things that perhaps I don't know that well, or perhaps that person has done something completely out of the box that perhaps, I don't know it right now, but I can get good, positive feedback from someone who has failed in this way before. So associate and get feedback from good people who can help you. Next question is, how can my experience help others someday to keep them from failing? That's what good and true and great leaders do. And I've been saying this for a very long time, that leaders, good leaders, they develop other leaders. And this is a great illustration of that point. How can my experience help others someday to keep them from failing? And that is one thing that leaders do, because leaders want to lead and help and enhance other people. And they want to teach other people, hey, this is why I failed. This is what I learned from my failure, and I want to share that with you. So when you get to that situation, then you don't commit the same mistakes that I've committed. So I am preventing you from going the same way, because I've done it myself. You don't have to do it. Next question. Did I fail because of another person, because of my situation, or because of myself? That's a reflective question. Why is it that I failed? Was it because of somebody else? Perhaps I delegated something important to somebody else and they missed the boat, and that's why. That's what happens. Or because of my situation, whatever your situation could be. Or because of myself, because I made the big mistake. And to be responsible, to take full responsibility. If that's what happened, if the failure was caused because of you, take full responsibility for it. Take full responsibility. Next question. Did I actually fail, or did I fall short of an unrealistically high standard? That is a great question, because for some people it is a failure, but in actuality it was not a failure. It was the fact that their expectations or their standards were so high that they were not able to get to those high standards. They were short, they fell short, but falling short of high standards doesn't necessarily mean that you failed. It means that you keep striving toward reaching those high standards. That's not a failure. But some people consider that a failure. So you have to be careful with that. And then the last question is, where did I succeed as well as fail? You see, when you get into failure, when you fail, don't just stay and linger on that failure. Think back to times where you succeeded. Don't allow your mind to only think of the current failure. Take your mind for perhaps a detour to places or to circumstances or to other times in your life when you succeeded. And feed your mind with a success and prosperity mindset. Don't let your mind feed on the failure. Feed your mind with successes in the past and bring those to mind. So let's remember this important fact, that people who blame others for their failures never overcome them. So don't be a person who, when the next time that you fail, automatically put the blame on somebody else. Don't do that. Because if you do that, you'll never overcome failures. Don't put the blame on others, or don't put a blame on things. Don't be so quick to do that. You see, they move from problem to problem, and as a result, they very rarely experience success. You see, take responsibility. Look at the failures. See what happens. Ask yourself these kinds of questions that I shared with you. And consider that in order to reach your potential, you must continually improve. Improve yourself. And while you are on that improvement and self-development road, then you will encounter failure. You will encounter mistakes, setbacks. But keep going, because these are the stepping stones to ultimately reach the pinnacle of your success. Always take responsibility, my friends, for your actions and be a consistent learner. Be a consistent learner. That's what leaders do. They make mistakes, but they learned. They failed, but they learned. They learned in every situation, and that is what helps them become great leaders. So ask why, not who. Thank you so very much for joining me for this lesson tonight. It was a pleasure to share that with all of you. And if you want to contact me directly, there is my website, alejandrojtornato.com, alejandrojtornato.com. You can also contact me on my social media platforms, my No Limits Living Facebook page, my Conversations with Influencers group, and it's definitely great to share these lessons with all of you. Now, these lessons, what I do, if you cannot watch me, or if you're not on Facebook, then I'll upload these videos to my YouTube channel, Alejandro J. Tornato Inspires. Okay, Maybe I can put a link below on the comments, so you get that and you can just click on the link and subscribe. As a matter of fact, please do subscribe to my YouTube channels, because I want to get to that first 100 subscribers. And the way to do that is what? One subscriber at a time. And so just go and click and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I mean, to help me out, I mean, I would certainly appreciate that very much. And so, as I always remind you, live every moment, be resilient, and also be kind, be passionate, be intentional in all that you do. And remember that we were not designed with any kinds of limitations. So I encourage you to live your life to the fullest of your potential and capabilities, and make every single day a limitless experience. So my friends, until the next time that we meet, all the very best, and be well.